How do you like your big ash? Up and down or sideways? Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the channel today. My name is Matt and this is Firewood in the Field. And quick announcement, there's a new logo in the store. If you want to get some Firewood in the Field merchandise, it's not going to split itself, y'all. What I got behind me today, I got two big ash rounds. And we're going to do a little comparison between the Wolf Ridge 28 Pro X, representing the horizontal push-through splitter, and the Power Split International static buggy, I think they call it, representing a vertical splitter. Thought I'd do a quick comparison to see which style might work better for me for a large round. So both of these are a little under 30 inches. I'll go measure and get the exact sizes. They were cut from the same log, but I will say this one is slightly larger because it was as I was cutting closer to the the root end of the tree, so it was starting to get bigger. But they're close. They're as close as I can get for big rounds. I am going to set up a timer, and it's going to be as accurate as I can make it. Don't kill me in the comments too bad. I'm sure it's not going to be the most scientific. I'm going to have a phone off to the side. I'll find somewhere I can set it, nearby where I won't risk stepping on it or anything. And I'll start the timer. I'll start the machine, let it warm up for a little bit. And then before I start pushing the log to the log lift, I'll start the timer, and so we can capture everything, just to see how it goes. It's not always about speed though. Sometimes it's about ergonomics and comfort. So after I split these two and we see how long it takes, I'm also going to talk a little bit about my experience and my thoughts, and what I think I like better for my operation for handling the big rounds. All right, let's get to it. Here's the round for the Wolf Ridge 28 Pro X. Try to do this one-handed here. We got 27. Okay, and then here's the round for the Power Split. Might be a hair bigger. Yeah, just a little bit. I think it's close enough though. So this one's coming in at 29, a little less. All right, I'm gonna do the Power Split first, and that's the ash round we're gonna split. That is where I'm gonna set my phone as a timer. So I'm gonna start the splitter, let it warm up for a little while, and then once I get ready to start, you won't be able to hear me with the splitter running, but I'll show you the phone, and then I'm hitting start. I'll set it down on that round right there, and we'll get going. Start. or I didn't say it before, I don't consider myself a professional at anything firewood related. Just been doing it for a while. I've produced about 3 cords of firewood off the power split, so I feel comfortable that I've used it enough now to do this comparison. Is there somebody that's better than me? Absolutely. Am I going to see some mistakes I made when I look at this footage? More than likely, yes. And feel free to give me a comment if you see something you suggest that I could improve upon. First thoughts, 7 minutes for one big round. Not too bad. Could be faster, I'm sure, but I'm happy with that with a single knife. It was relatively easy to do. You may have seen me struggle a little getting it onto the log lift. That might be a little easier if this was the factory height log lift. Like I showed you, I have those boards. I have to roll the round up onto those boards to try to take up some of the space. But once the round was up there, it was fairly easy to manage. I think maybe a hookaroon or a pickaroon to drag it around on the table might have even been better than my hands, but it was up there. I didn't have to pick it up again. I just had to scooch it around. But anyway, that's my thoughts on how I went with the power split. Let's get set up and go over to the bull fridge. Same strategy here. I've got that stump out of the way. I'm going to set my phone on there as a timer. We've got this big round here. That's the one we're going to split. We get the machine started, let it warm up, cycle the hydraulics a few times, and then we'll start the show. Something I failed to mention, you can see, I am leaving the 4-way wedge on the bull fridge. It does have a slower cycle time, but that's part of the advantage of this style of machine, is that the multi-way wedge. So I'm interested to see how this test goes with a slower splitter, but I'm making more splits per pass. right, so there you have it. The power split significantly faster. Now some of that could be on me. I'm sure there's some mistakes I made with the Wolf Ridge. It could have been faster than 10 minutes on that one big round. But I'm not declaring either machine a winner or a loser today. I see these fitting a different application. You notice I have a lot of small splits, so my roadside stand seems to sell better with small splits, or if I'm bundling. I do like a mix. I like a handful of nicer, regular size firewood in there, but by and large, for my recreational sales, people see around here that the smaller splits seem to do much better. This machine gives you a lot faster, easier control to get those small splits with a single knife. You just slide the log around and kabam, kabam, kabam. There you go. The Wolf Ridge pushes that wood through. Something to note, these are both 28-ton machines rated, so the power split is rated at 28 tons. This is a 28 Pro X Wolf Ridge. If you want to look up the specs on either machine, I'll put links to both manufacturers in the video description. But that's my Wolf Ridge 28 Pro X that you've seen on a bunch of videos of mine, and I love it. I bought it from Norm's Firewood and Woodman Cycles down in South St. Louis. Learned about them from Todd's Outside Again. And then this Power Split International, I bought this used from Brock Maggard out at Rock Hill Farm. And so far, I'm not sure which machine's my favorite. For the smaller wood, I think today shows an advantage. The Power Split is much faster. If I wasn't re-splitting down quite so small, or maybe if I put the 6-way wedge on, the Wolf Ridge would have probably been the same amount of time. From an ease of use standpoint, I'm actually going to call it a draw. The Wolf Ridge, the position of the log lift where the valve is at, it's a little easier. Maybe I'm just more used to it, but if you're rolling the round up, you just reach forward and there's your lever, whereas this one is kind of up and off to the side. As far as handling the wood once it was split, I really am going to call it a draw as far as effort goes. So with the power split, yes, once I had that big chunk up on the table, it was there. I didn't have to pick it up again or bring any pieces back, but I did have to slide that big heavy piece, and it was heavy to get it to move. Wolf Ridge, now I did have to bring pieces back, but the very first pass, I ran it through the 4-way, I split that round into 4 chunks. None of those were that difficult to move. I did choose to walk around the machine to grab that first big chunk and come back, so that might have added 25, 30 seconds to the overall time, whereas maybe a more manly man would have just reached out and grabbed it. But hope this was helpful information. It's something for me to think about. Right now, I plan on keeping both machines. My firewood operation is small enough, it's kind of hard for me to justify it, but I guess that just means I need to produce more firewood and make it worth it, right? But as always, appreciate you being here. Appreciate it even more if you want to consider hitting any of those like, hype, subscribe, any of those funky buttons. For Matt at Firewood in the Field, see you next time.